So let me start with why are we doing these events with OSSI in the first place. So it's two reasons. First is we all use open source all the time. Companies like Make, ElevenLabs, and all the companies in the world rely on it every day. And same goes for my and your career. Like it helps us so much every day. And so at the same time, the open source is super undervalued, underfunded very often, but there are few of these stories where people kind of figured it out in some way. So we want to share these stories, and that's why Matt is here today. And the second reason is we want to put Prague on this world map of tech hubs, right? Like San Francisco, like New York, Nordics these days. So hopefully this is going to help in some way, and the people that come here can actually take these stories back home, tell us or tell people at home how good it is here. And the other way around, so you can talk to people basically that made it in some way in the world. Now, this wouldn't be possible without our sponsors for tonight. So big shout out to Make and ElevenLabs who are making this possible. Speaking of cool companies, you might have heard that we're going to be giving out some credits. That's true. I'm going to be sending out an email after the event. So if you registered, you should receive it. If you sneaked in through some back door or something, you're not going to receive it. So register now. I think there should be even people from all of these companies, so you can talk to them and discuss ideas on like what you want to use these tools for. So there is probably plenty of makers here. Nice. Amazing. I think there should be someone from Apify as well. Okay, maybe not. And who else? Macaulay, the new vibe coding kit on the block. Probably late, but I think they will arrive. They also are launching on Product Hunt tomorrow. So you might want to support them there tomorrow if you see it. And ElevenLabs. Yeah, okay, not few folks, just Marin, but I've seen his code. It's like gives out for a few at least. Agenda, super simple, fireside chat. Maybe we'll take a break, maybe not, probably not, and then we're gonna have some fun with the drinks. And afterwards, what we're planning, we're setting it up. Hopefully it's gonna work out. But basically a little bit of a pop quiz kind of thing. And you just answer 10 questions or something like that. And the prize is one of these bad boys. So it's a ElevenLabs branded, super nice backpack. Hopefully, I actually don't know if I'm allowed to give them out, so maybe I'm gonna have to pay for it tomorrow. But I've been told that until we have these in stock, we're not gonna get black ones, so I'm working towards that goal. And I think that's it. No, Slido, right. Throughout the event, you can ask questions on Slido. The QR code is gonna be there just rotating, so don't worry about that. And I think that's it. So with that, let me invite Matt and Tomasz, who are going to be taking it over. Matt, quick question before we start. What's your favorite CSS? You deal with animations. What's your favorite or least favorite quirk about CSS these days?
Yeah, it's a bit. So there's this like about stacking context, and so like if you make any element like if it doesn't have an opacity of 1, it creates its own little like world essentially, and anything within it, if you put a background blur on that, it doesn't blur anything beyond its little world, and that is something that you generally don't run into. But I can tell you that it's caused me many hours of grief with the Framer team.
Okay,
recently,
I think this is like very advanced.
It's very specific.
Most of the people probably don't.
But there's a lot of designers in the room, and they'll run into it by accident now because of me, essentially. So, yeah, apologies if you ever see your layers aren't blurring correctly.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's get started. It's working nice. So I will ask a very basic question at the beginning. A little bit of disclaimer: I've always been a backend developer, and I try to stay away from front end as hard as I could. And like these kind of questions about CSS thingies are the reason.
Right.
I just always try to stay away. So my question is, how did you get uh, to build motion libraries? How did you start programming, and how did you get to front end and to love front end? What was the storyline to get there?
Well, it all started when I was 9 years old. So I used to design like little gaming magazines on my PC, just for myself. In like I forgot what it was called, but like one of these, like a InDesign knockoff. And then I started making like Pokemon fan sites, and that sort of I was 9, so it's fine. Like well, it's fine. It's fine if you do it in your 30s as well. But that just sort of like led on. I did more and more websites, and I spent more and more time designing basically. And then at one point, that was in like Microsoft Front Page, which is like an old like WYSIWYG for websites. I just realised that this is. I'm going to turn this. Just hello, and you could take a look under the hood and see the sort of code that it had made for you, and it was like it's a scary place. Especially for a
remember.
designer, that you don't really know what you're looking at and stuff, and all of the styles were sort of inlined into these attributes, and it was just it was more out of necessity. Like it would start putting like weird white spaces in, so you'd go into the code, strip them out, and I don't know. But then when I went to uni, I just sort of like stopped doing all that, and I picked up magazine design again on the student magazine, and that led me to my first job. So despite failing my degree, it wasn't a complete waste of time to go to university. I got my first job doing a magazine designer, and that had some web stuff in it. And then the next job was just web because print died. And then the next job, like it just sort of the next job was design and coding. And then the next job was coding, and I was like, great, do I get to design some things? And they were like, no, like, no, of course you don't. You're a developer. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm a developer now. So it was just sort of it wasn't like a plan. Yeah, it just sort of happened really.
All right. It's similar to many stories that I hear of fellow software engineers. So how did you get to your first open source library, or to just writing software for free for others, basically?
Yeah, again by mistake. Like I just wanted to write a book about animations. Like I had like just some like thoughts that I was been writing down, and I thought, well, if you're going to write about it, it doesn't really make sense to like write just a book because you just end up spending most of your time describing animations that it's not very compelling stuff. So what if it was a website that had interactive demos and stuff like that? And when I was doing some of the demos, like I was writing like a lot of spring animations because these ideas were like, when you interact with an interface, it should like feel reactive. It should feel like you're putting your force into the UI, and that the UI is responding per your force. You're not like telling it to do something. You're like genuinely interacting with it the same way you can interact with like real devices.
Mm-hmm.
And the way to do that is with like spring animations largely, and some of the stuff. But anyway, yeah, oh yeah, and so I'd written all this code, and I was like, oh, this would probably be a library. And then my attention sort of drifted, and that's how I started writing animation libraries. Like there was a gap for my personal use.
And did you finish the book?
No, of course not. No.
Okay, I love this part. Like I started writing a book. Oh, maybe I need some code for it. Oh, this would be a cool library. So how much traction did it get, or how did you how did it evolve?
Yeah, very little traction, because it was. I was just because I wasn't very good, basically. But it was just that it was poorly written for a start, and the API was quite complicated, I suppose. So like I wanted anyone to be able to go in and do anything with it, and that just left a lot of choices up to the people who were implementing the library, and that sort of like no one wants choices. I think I've learned since, and you just want to make the 99% of the use cases as simple as possible. Whereas I was leaving a lot of unnecessary things up to the user. And I was also rewriting it a lot. So the API, because it wasn't used by that many people, I sort of felt like I had that freedom. But you still see it today with certain libraries where they'll rewrite the API every major version, whereas Motion has been like, and there's a reason for this as well, rather than like some great lesson that I've learned. But like the APIs remained quite consistent. Even when we make breaking changes, it's usually like incredibly isolated, and like something really obscure or something. And yeah, so it was only really when I started rectifying those things, like making simple APIs, that it ended up getting any traction at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So then at some point you joined Framer.
Mm-hmm.
What was kind of the transition from writing open source library to join a company to do it as a kind of a professional job?
Basically, like I wanted to do but it was the original library was called Popmotion, and I wanted to do it full time and see how far I could get with like getting sponsors. So I quit my job and I spent about 3 months in my dressing gown trying to like get sponsors, and I was writing it was called Pose, which was the React version, and this was like really simple, and it finally started getting some traction. And then one day, so I was making about 300 quid a month on sponsorships, and I got Framer released their prototyping tool at the time, and it was based on React, and you could go under the hood and start writing your own code in there. So I just put Pose in there to add animations to this prototyping tool, and I got an email from the boss saying, do you want to do this? Like, we need someone to do animations. Do you want to come and do them here? And so it was as simple as that, really. I was like, yeah, I'm not making any money on sponsorship, so I should probably I'd need an income at some point. So it was a bit of a no-brainer, really. Yeah.
And how many installations did the library had at that point? Like,
I honestly can't remember, but I think you're talking probably in the low 100,000s a week, something like that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, in comparison to like Motion now is like 7 or 8 million. Is it a week? I don't know. These numbers are like, it's more like trends. You can't really get too much out of like how many users you get out of that. It's just because one company might install it like multiple times.
How our pipelines are built.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it sounds like a big number, but it might be one guy who's just like, I don't know, running some bot on it. I don't know, but it's bigger than it was, so that's nice.
One guy without caching.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you start from scratch in Framer or just continue evolving the library?
So the API, we sort of like hashed it out, because this is the thing about Motion. It was meant to be like so simple that incredibly.
Maybe it would be good to introduce Framer for people who don't know.
Yeah. So at the time, at least, Framer was like a prototyping tool, a little bit like Figma, but with more like advanced capabilities in terms of linking screens. Like really bringing an app to life, I guess, so that you could like click on things, new pages would come up. Yeah, so whereas now it's a web builder, so like you can go in and design your website, press publish, and it will be live. Yeah. But in terms of the API, like it was speaking to, because this was an API that was meant to be used by designers who don't necessarily have like a technical background. So even though Pose was meant to be simple, there were certain concepts and names that we wanted to get rid of and simplify it even further. And so we did. And it was like built again on Popmotion, but it was like it replaced Pose, so it was built from scratch, but ish. Like I was using a lot of Popmotion in it still.
All right. And kind of who was where were the ideas coming from? Was it all you? Who was driving the roadmap and deciding what to build? How active was the community in this, or the people from the company?
Yeah, it was a bit of a mix. Like sometimes you'd have like an API that was released, and then they'd be like, "Oh, wouldn't that be cool to get that into the UI and build like a feature on this feature?" But then there was also like the layout animations where you can just basically take two designs that are completely different and animate one from the other. That was something they wanted to do. and it was like, yeah, I mean, that was, I wouldn't have gone down that road. But I've always wanted to do it, but it was like 3 solid months of, I don't think anyone's going to put that sort of investment into it again.
Mm-hmm.
Because like it was also so not how Framer or myself like to release features, which is like trying, like you know where you're trying to get to, like how many releases can we do along the way, like how useful is it in bits. That's sort of like how I guess the culture is there, like rather than big banger release, like think of it more strategically, like how are we going to get there with the maximum number of releases on the way. Whereas their animations was kind of like it's all or nothing basically. So that was yeah, I think that was during COVID as well. So I was basically going a little stir crazy in my bedroom with all these while my wife was trying to teach me what maths was, because it uses all these like transforms and counter transforms and stuff. And I mean, I still don't know, but I knew it. I held it in my head briefly for a couple of months there. And now I'm just too scared to touch the code. I've got just increasing number of tests around it, and that's the only thing that gives me.
That's a nice pivot to our first question from the audience. Animations and tests. What are recommendations on this?
Yeah, so you can do certain things like you could patch request animation frame and like run it synchronously. There is like a secret API inside of Frame Motion where we do that in certain test suites, but we just, I mean, a lot of the time. I don't know why I do this, but sometimes I'll just use a really quick duration, like 0.1% or something. Yeah, so, or you could, is this a secret API? Like you can skip animations as well. So if you want to test like a UI responds the way that you want it to, then you could skip. But I think that's hidden. But anyway, there's certain things you can do like that. And if it's something that there's more, like I'll take suggestions. Like if there's APIs that people would like to help testing, because I also find it.
So when you say secret, it's kind of not mentioned in the documentation. It's just used by you for testing the library when building it.
Yeah, exactly. And certain things as well, we're put in there for framers usage as well. So they've got certain tests or even certain features that will flag these things on and off. Yeah, but yeah, on the whole, like we've got like a mix of jest tests as well. But we've also got a suite, because there's certain things that you can't really do in Jest. Jest is like a node only API, so it means that there's no browser. You're just running the code like without a browser, and then anytime you want to query the browser, you're kind of like talking to Node's approximation of it, which isn't necessarily a true thing. So you've got to mock a lot, and when you're mocking things, it's not real anymore, and you get into all sorts of trouble. So then we have this other whole suite of like end-to-end tests, which is really slow to run. Which is like a pain, but you know, it's better than things breaking. So yeah, and I've got more. I think I'm more in that world now. Like, so I quite enjoy. Like, I like having like a robust set of end-to-end tests over just the jest tests that I used to have.
All right. So this part you said that you are afraid to touch is despite having like all the tests still scared to touch it.
Yeah, it's probably because of that. It's because, you know, if you trip one of the tests, like what? Okay, great. Now I'm going to fix that. Oh, now another one's you know that there's a solution in there. Like there's a line to thread through all these tests where they'll pass. But yeah, I try not to change anything too fundamental about this, because the problem with these layout animations is that if you get any calculation wrong, like boxes literally jump all over the screen. And it just looks, yeah, it's I mean, it's a very obvious bug. It can make things feel super broken. So I'm just terrified of them. I don't know what to.
Yeah. And so, you have the liberty to be your own product manager and prioritize whatever you
yes,
you
want
to
is
work
not
on.
those. Yeah.
One of the benefits to be working on your own project. Maybe a little bit related to this, a question: favorite tools for debugging? What's your usual workflow when you are debugging?
Yes, I use like Chrome DevTools. So like you can right click on any page, and there's like a little performance tab, and that's usually the one that I'm mostly in, like performance testing. And the nice thing about that is that when you get like some slow stuff, you can go in, click on the line of code, or it will take you to a trace of what code's running. So you can sort of like start adding like breakpoints and stuff, and yeah, so it's basically all Chrome. Console logs, Nothing special. Like I think everyone wants something better, but I don't think it exists. I think it's really just console log. Yeah.
Makes sense. And for end-to-end tests, what's your favorite library? Do you use Playwright or?
So I've got a legacy suite of Cypress tests, and I've got like a new suite of Playwright tests. And I think it's that's making me want to write more tests because it runs much faster, and you can run it in different browsers a lot quicker. And yeah, I've been quite pleased with Playwright. Yeah.
Okay, I think we can move on from this question about testing and debugging. So what were maybe the downsides of working on the library as part of a company, and what kind of led to the phasing out again and working on it independently again?
So like, I mean, this is like reasonable from the company's perspective, but over the years, like, you know, what I'm doing is writing a piece of software that they give away for free. And for a while, it was like the popular thing. It was sort of almost good advertising because it was bringing more people in to use Framer than perhaps like would have used it anyway. But when we pivoted to the websites, like that was so popular that it actually became a problem to have Framer and Framer Motion because it just added like sort of a brand confusion, especially once you've pivoted from prototyping to site building. You've got, oh, but I thought Framer was an animation library. Like people knew it sometimes as Framer. So there was always that sort of tension. And then in terms of them, like, what do I work on? Do I work on this free product, or do I spend my time on the popular thing that makes money? So they increasingly wanted me to work like on different types of products, different features that were more core and not related to the Motion library. And so sometimes I do it because I just felt like I'm someone who can be like, maybe this is how I've ended up in this position, but like someone who I want to do what I want to do. It's such a dickhead thing to say. Like, you know what I mean though? Like it's so petulant, but like that is what it is. Like I'm just sort of someone who's motivated by kind of my own interests. And so sometimes, and that works really well when my interests and the company's aligned. Like with their animations, like they wanted something, I thought it sounded amazing, and it was part of the library, so let's do that. But then when it's something else that I'm not so interested in, like I even find like my brain just won't work. Like it will just it's almost like gears have like stopped. So it's not just petulance; it's also like it's almost like it's difficult in that sense, but. Yeah, and that I'd say that tension sort of was like it ebbed and flowed over the years, and then towards the end of I'd say the last year I was in a position where I was kind of like trying to find a compromise, like the Venn diagram of what I wanted to do and what they would want from Framer Motion, and it also everything in the middle there, it was kind of just performance, and so I spent a lot of time like improving the performance of the library, which is good as well. But at the same time, like if you change fundamental things about it and then cause bugs, which I had done at some point, and then it's like, well, why were you doing that in the first place? Like, we didn't ask you to do it. And it's like, yeah, that's fair. But like I was trying to find, I'm trying to do something that is in both of our interests. So I think from their perspective, I was probably like a little more trouble than I was worth. That's a really mean way of saying something that wasn't that mean, but that's like their perspective. But from mine, like I did a day where I sort of I booked an office somewhere else, and I just like I tried to brainstorm like, what am I gonna do with Frame of Motion in this next year? And I didn't really write much down. Like it was all performance related, and that sort of scared me a little bit. Well, not scared me, but I was a bit like, oh, that's a shame. Like I don't have any ideas for this. Like, what am I even doing? And that's when I started talking to Adam. Like that day, like I was chatting to him about him and Tailwind. So like Tailwind's like a CSS pre-processor, and he's a great example of someone who has been really successful in monetizing that by offering just like a whole extra, like he basically like Tailwind templates essentially. And it made him like a really successsul, like it's basically turned it from a library to a business. I didn't necessarily want a business, but I did want something that could sustain myself. So we chatted that day. And then I came back to the same exercise like a few weeks later with the mindset of like, what would I do if this was mine and like just a standalone project, and I didn't have to worry about what the company wanted. And it was just like ideas sort of, and I'm still like churning my way through them basically. Yeah.
I think this is really inspirational. You said that you may have sounded a little bit like a prick when you said, "Oh, I'm gonna just work what I want to do. I'm not gonna work on anything else." But essentially, this is what many people can get inspiration from. Like we often work, especially in bigger companies, we work on a lot of old school stuff, a lot of legacy code. We are doing things nobody wants to do,
Yeah.
and we hate it. And many people are afraid to make the step, or even just kind of allow themselves to dream what is the ideal path, and even make the first step there. So for me, this is definitely inspirational. Um, and maybe just a side note, when you were explaining the setup at Framer, when I look at it from my position of a CTO, this would be my first thing to do when we'll be running short on resources and we would want to finish a project soon. I would be grabbing you, right, and
Yeah.
to help on the project. So I assume that's what was kind of happening there a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, they weren't even bad about, like, it wasn't that often because I think because they knew how strongly I felt about this. So, but from my point of view, that is reasonable. So it's not like anyone in the situation has to be unreasonable for it to not be a sustainable situation. Yeah.
So was it as easy as you kind of describe it? Kind of the last moment when you had your plan, you had your idea, you wanted to take the library away from Framer. Was it an like peaceful divorce?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward, but like, well, yeah, yes and no. So I didn't know whether I wanted to take it out or not. I just knew like this is an option and this sounds amazing, but at the same time, I really love, like, although like I say, it ebbed and flowed. Right now isn't great, but I love the people and I love the company and I like our product. You know, that's a pretty good setup as well. So it's not like I ever knew that I wanted to leave. It sort of just, like, I think things came to a bit of a head. It came to a head, and the option was raised of me spinning it out into its own project, and I was like, oh. Shit, if you're suggested it, like, yeah, like that's great. Yeah, let's do that then. Yeah.
And Framer became your first sponsor, so I guess there had to be a good relationship after it happened.
Yeah, exactly. Because, well, I mean, as well, like, it's in there. I think that partly they were worried that if I didn't make it succeed, then I'm not going to do it for longer than. So that's the core of their animations. So if I just take it out and then just don't maintain it or whatever it is, then that's a problem for them as well. So they became like the primary sponsor. And that's been great. That's for 1 year. That was almost like and it's great because they've almost like incubated it for 6 years. Obviously that's not what anyone set out to do, and it's a shame because it sort of shows what it takes to get a open source project in that sort of healthy state. Like, I went from £300 a month sponsorship, like being in my dressing gown at 5 p.m. in the evening, like really like not a sustainable yeah, it's not a sustainable situation, and then having 6 years of like a proper job, and now like thanks to their their cooperation, like, and so the game really was like, so they I think they want to bring it down after a year or something. We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen, but from my point of view, that was like, okay, well, they might not be around forever, so I need to ramp up the sponsorship from other companies as quick as possible and figure out how to make money out of individuals as well. So that was the sort of like first couple months was just spent doing that, basically, like building out payment pipelines and emails and figuring out what I'm going to sell people as well, which is weird because it's not what you like. None of that was on that document that I was really excited to get to. Like, oh, I'm going to do all this stuff when if I took this independent, but actually it turned out to be quite fun. But I have had to remind myself this isn't what I set out to do. Like, I wanted to just maintain the library. But the stuff that's come out of it, like the examples and the components and the APIs and stuff, has also added like it sort of brought a lot of life back perhaps to the project. It's definitely given it a more like a broader universe that it lives in now, whereas before it was just kind of slowly, I don't know, it was like ticking along, but it wasn't like a living project.
Okay. So maybe we can talk a little bit about kind of the business side of this move. But before we get there, there is an interesting question about what you said earlier, that you were making maybe 200, 300 quid out of the paid sponsorship of the first library.
Yeah.
How did you get even to that, like to the first 200, 300? Was it just you set it up payment options and it happened automatically, or how did it go?
I honestly can't remember. Yeah, I think it was GitHub sponsors, and I think I had like maybe like a company in there, so that would have been like 100 quid or something like that. But I honestly can't remember what the breakdown was. Whereas now the minimum corporate sponsorship is 250 a month, and that's the minimum. And that gets you like, because now there's traffic, so you can sell the traffic. You can say like your logo's on this page, it gets X number of views. So, but I didn't have the traffic back then, and I don't remember what the upsell was, and I think that's a problem. Unless you like physically gate certain content from people, then they're not like that. No one's going to pay. And even within the first week of going independent with Motion, which is now like relatively well known, like because I know the traffic numbers to the website, and so I'm thinking like, oh, and so if that's the number of people that are like visiting the website every year, then how many people would be good to like convert that into subscribers or sponsors? Sorry.
How off were you when you were making these assumptions compared to reality?
I thought it was going to be low. It was way lower than that, and I thought it was going to be low because like maybe 2 years ago, I did a little side project called Motion One, which was like, it was just a whole other thing, and it's sort of been subsumed now into Frame of Motion. But that was, you weren't allowed, like you couldn't even get the source code for that or use it or read the documentation unless you paid. And because it was just a side project, it almost like, I don't need this to be big. Like that is more maintenance for me, and this is my side project. It's just for fun. And when I made that public, like and you could just use it, the sponsorships basically stopped overnight. So from that I knew the lesson that I'd need something that people are kind of buying. And I don't really love like subscriptions as well, because everyone's got a subscription. And when I was talking to Adam, like from Tailwind, in that discussion, he was sort of explaining the Tailwind model, which is basically you pay 300 quid and you get lifetime access to all of the templates that exist and all the templates that are going to exist. I think the initial like concern is like, well, where's my recurring revenue from that? But he was like, but the thing is, like, if you were going to charge someone 10 quid a month, then how long are you really going to keep them around for? Like 3 years? Like, no way. Like, they're going to churn. So by charging 300 quid up front, you've locked them in essentially for 3 years. Not locked them in. It's not, it's not coercive, but it's like that's the numbers behind it. And so that convinced me that after, it was kind of just what can I do now, like an MVP. And so if my 5 personal subscribers and like 5 corporate like I had 5 corporate sponsors, which obviously, like if you think about the numbers involved, like dwarf the personal thing. So I just thought this isn't even a revenue stream. So I shut the personal subscriptions down immediately. And then within a couple of weeks, like I launched like Motion Plus, which basically in week 1, it basically bought you nothing, but it was 300 quid. But like, I think there was something very minor. But I think there was the promise of what else it will get you. And so I've just been slowly like that. Then I had to quickly roll in value to that, because obviously no one was buying it, which was fair, but people would, just to support the project, which is cool. But now, like, it's just been, okay, how do I make this more like keep the price point the same, but roll more value into it over time. So it's been like examples, private APIs, etc. Yeah.
Interesting. And maybe to kind of for now wrap up this part, there is a question, how ballpark estimate? How much can you actually make out of this paid sponsorship? Is it making you rich? Is it good for like normal living? Are you getting there?
Yeah, well, so that's the thing. Like, so ballpark, say the number the Tailwind guy told, it was like, he's built a business on it. We're talking millions, and obviously he's like got. So I'm just like, well, between my salary and that, like if anywhere in there is fine,
I take
like
it.
so it is in there, but it's not like even it's not more this way. But the thing that I'm sort of thinking is so the numbers are really good, but I'm a little not concerned about AI, more like terrified. Like I'm a bit worried that like how long am I even going to have a job doing this? Do you know what I mean? Like that's how I don't know. Like it could be quite a while, but it could be not that long. And so really, like when you turn it into numbers, like let's say I haven't made a million, but like let's say I made a million because I can divide by 10. So I've learning maths off my wife, so I'm not very good at sums. If you divide that by 10, somewhere that's 10 years of salary. So it's not, I'm not off to the Bahamas, even if you made £1 million. So it just shows you how like the numbers sort of break down. You have to make a lot for this to be AI proof, but I don't need it. I mean, hopefully this will be viable for a few years at least, and I can at least I'll figure that out like later on. But at the moment, I can live on it. That's what I'd say. Yeah.
I like the AI topic. Let's discuss it a little bit. Do you see it necessarily only as a competition, like the code vibe coding tools, or do you see that they are actually building on top of library like React Motion, that basically it's like building stone for the model to use?
Yeah, I mean the nice thing about the AI, like AI generated code at the moment, it will pull in from. It's not like it's going to recreate Motion; it just pulls in from Motion. And even if you use like Figma, have like they're calling them like code layers or something, so you'll be able to draw a frame on the canvas and then prompt an AI to generate some code. And now this like frame is like a little mini app or something. But when you go in there, you can then edit the code. That code is like import Motion from Motion/React. So it is using my code, which is great because then you're thinking, oh, well, I've got more users. But then, I don't know, these like premium APIs are stuff that, might take a couple of weeks to build something on top of those. How, like, are we going to get to a point where the AI is so good that it will just be able to do it? I don't know. But on the whole, like, I use AI, but that's my canary in the coal mine.
Mm-hmm.
Once it can just do a premium API, like if I say to it, build this, this sort of component, and it does it, well, I can't sell it. So as long as it has trouble, which it can't do even a fraction a lot of the time, then that's good. Then I think, oh, okay, well, this is worth me making because it's valuable because the AI can't just make it itself.
Mm-hmm.
But how long is that going to last? My Twitter feed is full of so many hype beasts that are just like 10 amazing announcements from Google Gemini. That I'm like, whoa, that's actually like if that's the quality never is, but like how long until it's not? I don't know.
And kind of from the AI line back to maybe vibe coding and in general, like junior developers, people starting programming, starting with front end. There is a specific question. Let's start with that maybe from the audience, like tip for beginners. What are easy tips that you can get to that can get you to 80% of value with handling animations? If you were to teach starting front-end engineers, what would be your tips regarding animations? I guess that's what the question is about.
Oh yeah, I think the one general tip is to like, and you can break this like later, but I just stick to transform, opacity, filter, clip path. Like those 4 values will basically always animate in terms of performance well. That's not even true, but broadly true. True enough. And so when you start dipping into other values, which you can do, but you just have to like then you get into testing on like who's your audience, blah blah blah. Those 4 values will generally just get you like at least 80% of the way, and you can be quite creative with them as well. Like some people like to animate drop shadow, which is like a really expensive thing to animate. But if you use filter, that has a drop shadow in that. With that, it can't do everything the normal drop shadow can, but it can do most things. And so if you animate that, then you're getting like GPU performance basically. So that would be my number one thing.
All right. And how do you what's kind of your personal take these days? Is it worth starting learning programming like a front-end programming, React, HTML, CSS from scratch? Is it does it make sense?
It's tough, isn't it? Because like you think that you want a good technical foundation to build on, but at the same time, like when I was learning, I only really ever learned because I had to make what I wanted to make, and isn't that more important? And I think that there's like I read something. This is paraphrased and butchered, but it was something along the lines of like you kind of you don't necessarily want an engineer. You want someone who can build a product that people like to use. That's all you want. Like you don't really care like if he's like someone really good at code or a designer who can turn that into like a good enough code of AI or whatever it is. And I do think that is lacking as well. Like I see certain like library authors who they sort of let perfect be the enemy of good, and so they'll spend weeks perfecting something, which is usually pretty good when it's out. But it's like, well, what have in comparison, if I look at my output for the same period of time, like I've gotten through so many features, bugs, content updates, because I'm like not because I don't have like a quality bar. It's just that I think I like it. It's just the skill is how can I get like something small enough that's useful and get that out, and then you build. It's like building blocks. You don't even have to get it out. Like I released an API for vanilla JavaScript that later I want to use as like a fundamental part of the React API. But a lot of people would have waited until that and they would just ship that as part of the core part of the engine and maybe not even made a big deal about it. But I just thought, well, that is useful for a lot of people, so let's just ship that. And I'll come back to that later. Like I don't need to even build on it today or this week or make it this big project. And once you've broken projects down like that, you're kind of like, rather than these big monolithic projects, you've got like 20 projects going on at the same time, and I don't need to like have a chart or anything because that was good enough. Like I can pick that whenever I want. No one's waiting on the next bit. You can pick up 20 other things in the meantime, get something valuable out. Yeah. So anyway, that was a bit of a diversion, but I think that's the thing. I basically don't know because I do think that the important part is sort of building something. Yeah, which is because I care about like I enjoy writing code, so it's almost like a shame. But then there's been a million shames throughout history.
Yeah. So basically, with the web coding tools, you can get much more installations of the library, but the people that are actually using it, they don't even know they're using it because it was generated for them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other problem. Like I've even had to send Figma so in part of Motion Plus, one of the things is like a little you can give the AI editors like rules or like advice and stuff basically. And I've got a little rule file that I keep for myself, and I sell that as part of Motion Plus. And I gave it to them to put in their code editor because I noticed it was making all these mistakes and doing things that basically you wouldn't do either with the latest API or what things that I just wouldn't do or performance improvements, whatever it is. Yeah, so they make mistakes still, a lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah. This is interesting. That basically, from thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of developers kind of interacting with whatever you build, it starts narrowing down to only handful who use it heavily, and they use it through prompting, basically.
Yeah.
Do you get so you said this particular example that you kind of keep these rules for yourself for prompting. do you have interactions with the kind of builders, developers of the vibe coding tools that you do you maintain kind of this kind of relationships since they kind of become your power users, super users?
Yeah. No, but like, yeah, I probably should, because like I do that. I was because I already have a relationship with Figma. I felt like, okay, well, I'll just tell them about this because it can improve the output. And because what I get is the question, like someone will they'll generate some code, and they'll come along and they'll say, oh, this I found this bug in the code, and it's like, we didn't. That doesn't exist. That API doesn't exist. I don't even know where you got that from, but something's hallucinated.
But it should exist. You should
yeah,
create
sometimes people have done that as well. Like when they keep getting the hallucinated API, they're like, okay, we'll just ship it and then see.
That's funny.
Just to stop getting the same question over and over again.
Okay, so the LLMs are your product manager then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's funny. There was a related questions. So maybe any advice on collaborating with motion and interaction designers to land on an execution that's just right? Any thoughts on that? I just read exactly the question, so I'm not sure what's behind it.
Yeah. It's I guess. Yeah, I don't know what's behind it. I guess like who asked this? I guess it's anonymous. So what do they build their animations in? The nice thing about something like Figma or Framer is now that if you're like developing the animations, you know that they were built on Motion, so there's almost like no excuse. Like, you know that you can implement them. But if someone's like designed something like After Effects or something, then I don't know. I used to have this like argument all the time with the designers at a company that I used to work at, and they'd be building these animations that looked amazing. I was like, that's gonna take months, so you can't actually do that. I think with layout animations, generally that doesn't take months anymore. So most things are like the most advanced stuff is like doable. But yeah, like, is it gonna hold up the user interaction? I don't know. There's a million things that could be wrong with it. And it could be really poorly. The performance could be really, really awful because they've gone wild with like background color, or I don't know, whatever it is, like some big layer that's moving around or something like that. But basically, yeah, I don't have any advice for you because I was awful at it. I think now and then I'd convince, like, it's usually a time thing. Everyone's got a time budget, and I suppose you can go down the route of, well, we've got a budget to implement this design of 2 weeks, and that animation's going to take us 2 months. So I don't know where you want us to spend, or something like that. Or we've got 2 weeks that will take us 5 days, but this other bit will take us, 10 days. Like, how do you want to? Because you could make that simpler. So there's a time is usually a good, like the chips. It's a good negotiating tool. But yeah, I'd never fully cracked that myself. So yeah, underwhelming answer, but that's it's a tough one.
Before we move on to the next set of questions, do you it may be a little bit related to the tips for beginners, but when you look at the state of web today, is there do you feel kind of there is some kind of minimum animations that the modern website should have, minimum set of animations to kind of be relevant, kind of as a baseline? When I was building websites, there were no animations. But right now, what do you see is kind of bare minimum? What you should, just from the user experience perspective, to be perceived as kind of nice, modern, responsive?
I feel like it doesn't. Like, it depends, because I've been thinking about this recently, because I released like a custom cursor component, and one of the examples I did was like this. It was like a reticule that you'd probably like find in an F-16 fighter jet or something, and so like this thing's spinning, and then when you hover over something, it sort of like expands and like covers a thing. And it's completely unnecessary and over the top. And I thought, and one of the responses I got was like, "Oh, well, that's not really good UX." I was like, yeah, no, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But I'm like, I'm just showing off the technology, really. But actually, is there never any room for ridiculousness? Like, if you've got like a portfolio or something like that, like, you just want to go, all you're doing a tech demo, like, just go wild. Like, why not? Like, if this is your portfolio or your agency website or something like that, or just a fun website, Wikipedia shouldn't have an F-16 custom cursor. but your personal portfolio might. So then I was like, well, there's a spectrum for where Wikipedia, I think, because it's such an information dense website, where certain animations are just not appropriate. And like, is that all animations? Like, does Wikipedia need anything? Like, maybe not. But then it does have like I think it has like a live preview when you hover over a link. Well, it'd be nice if that faded in. So I always feel like anything that gets from from A to B, that should be animated. And it can even be like, this isn't something anyone does, but I feel like it should happen. But if it's like a power user bit of UI, like Spotlight is a really good example. So on your Mac, when you like hit Command Space, you get the Spotlight. Now, obviously, you want that to be instant. But the first time, like, maybe it does fade in the first time, and then after that, it doesn't fade in again. And I think the same with drop-down menus. Like, what if I animated the first time and then it never does it again? Or maybe the iteration speed gets quicker and quicker until it's like infinitesimal. Like the first time, maybe it's a little bit like outrageously slow, and then the second time it gets like half as fast, twice as fast, and then maybe it has a half-life or something like until it's instant. And that wouldn't be appropriate for everything, but like those power user things. I guess what I'm saying is like it really depends basically. And then there's the whole world of like basic UX, which is, I think, animations for that, what we're talking about there, falls into that category. And then there's like something that I don't think is ever talked about, but it's like confidence in your user interfaces. So like if your website just breaks, then that's just crap. But if it breaks and it shows a user an error message of some sort, then that's crap. But it's like, oh, but they know what's going on. Like a report has been sent, and you're like, oh, okay, they've handled it. If it breaks and there's like a full description, blah blah blah, I don't know, something just that there's levels to how you can handle an error. And I also, so in that same way, I think, and they all give you more confidence in the UI. I think there's like also a category of like confidence building animations. So like, say you've got a carousel and you've got like 10 items in it and you tab all the way to the end. So like the normal way to handle you coming to the end of that carousel is you disable the next button. And when people click on it, like it's faded out, so it doesn't do anything. And you like, job done. But it's cooler if you like click on it and it reacts still because it's a button, it ain't gone anywhere. And you imagine if like a real life button just stops. Did you ever have it on your iPhone where when they used to have the home button and it was capacitive? Is that the word? Capacitive? Anyway, you click it and it uses like a little vibration to make you feel like you'd swear that it was a real button, but it wasn't. And then if you turned it off and you try and click it, it just felt weird. Like it was strange that it was now just this solid device, like this solid button. That's how I sort of feel about this sort of thing. So like the button should still press, and then the carousel, like ideally in my head, ideally it'll give, and you probably experience this with certain things. It'll like tug a little bit, just enough to show like the force from your click or your finger has gone into the UI, and it's absorbed it, and it's telling you like, with a little tug animation, you can't click this anymore. But it's like it's a confident way of handling that, and I think most interactions have a version of that. That's about confidence building, but that I'd say accessibility is the minimum, and then the confidence building is sort of like that's like the next sort of level to this.
Do you have, there's actually a question from the audience, do you have favorite anti-patterns that make you smile when you see them related to animations?
Not smile. I feel I cry. I know. I get it because animation's hard, but like I feel like just the wrong easing curve. Like, and not like I'm not hyper specific about this, but if you've got an animation which and this doesn't happen a lot, but you'll run into it where you'll click something and it's an ease in curve, which means it starts slow, it gets faster throughout the animation, and then it sort of stops dead. that feels just horrid. And so if I see that, I'm like, why did you do that? You'd have to put effort into making that as well. That's the thing. Like you have to choose that easing curve. But I'm like, surely it felt wrong when you use this and you just felt like, oh, I'll change it back, or I don't know, just get rid of the animation. Like that's worse than because that is going back to confidence UX and stuff like that. That's like when you click on something and it reacts, it's going really fast. Like that's from you and your energy into the interface. That's a transition. If you click on something and it's like, well, better get going, and then it starts to move. That's you've told it to do something. It's you are separated. Yeah, you might as well have sent it a letter, like saying I've clicked you.
Do you argue with people about that in discussions?
No, not about this.
Not about this in general. Like when you see somebody like having wrong opinion, or in your eyes wrong opinion about how to use animations. Do you do that?
No. No, and I think there's actually mostly consensus about stuff like this. Like I don't really see many opinions that are different. If you've got a strong opinion about it, it's generally along these lines, which is fine. But yeah, no, I try and stay out of internet arguments these days. Yeah.
So since we are talking about open source library, after all, there are usually communities around libraries. The question is, do you have any or many stable open source collaborators? And maybe a little bit related question to that, so let's merge them, is how much the business stuff is sucking out the fun out of writing code for you, and maybe is there a way for you to work with more collaborators to kind of compensate for that?
So like with collaborators, like we do have we got one major collaborator who does the Vue library, the Vue integration, and he's really great because he basically like he just does it. Like if I build an example in React, the next day there's a PR with the same example in Vue. And that's because he's like a self-starter, like he just does it. That's kind of what attracted me to him in that way. Like I was just like, great, like, do you want to do the official motion for Vue integration? Because you can handle this. And I'd say, but I always like accept PRs and stuff. So, but there's not like a cast of rotating characters. Like there's not people that come in regularly. There's just people who will see a bug that really affects them. And then sometimes they'll, 99% of the time they just complain about it. But sometimes they'll fix it, and that goes straight in usually because I appreciate that. But on the whole, actually the business side of things is like it's almost like a whole fun new dimension because like there's two reasons. Because one, it's like now like I feel like I'm building something that's coming back to me rather than going back to a company. So there's that side of it. But also like in the start, and I don't really do this now, but I felt like I had to build like a bedrock of corporate sponsors. And so in the first couple of weeks, like a lot of my time was just going after, like getting in touch, because I had a list of people that I knew used Motion. So I get in touch with them. And it was almost like, I don't have a contact at this company. How do I find them? Like, I'll go on Twitter, like, this person follows me on Twitter. This person might know this person. And so you like hunt, it was like a hunt. It was great fun. And I'd go into work with like my hunting rifle and my leather jacket and my straw hat or whatever. But that couldn't last because it would get old as well. Like, but it was fun for a few weeks. And now whenever I see someone like Airbnb just did this whole redesign, and one of their designers was like, "Oh, and we use Motion for this." I was like, "Oh, great! I would love to have Airbnb." Like, so they go on the list now. And they didn't respond, but someone at Airbnb might, and so like finding that person is like it's a bit of a waste of time now. But like at the start, that was you had more willing like people as well because it was like new. And
that's maybe interesting side question. Have you figured out who are kind of the decision makers who can actually make the sponsorship decision in the companies, like in company like Airbnb? Who would be the one you would be going after?
With Airbnb, you'd have to go through the design team. But sometimes you've got like someone quite high up already that follows you, which is easy. That's easier. But a lot of the times, like with the smaller companies, it's the person that runs the company. they're like, oh, I build the whole site, and I do this, and I really love like motion, and it just made this sort of thing easier for me. So basically, if you can make something easier for someone, that's a good way in. But Figma, it was like most of the design team used it, so, and I didn't really quite comprehend how much they were using it there. So I felt like it was a bit of a swing. And then when I was talking to him, I was like, oh shit, like these guys they're really using it. So that was it, but that was full of bureaucracy. So some other companies you just go, and then some of the companies you go, oh, that, you know, you're gonna sponsor me. It's like I'd love to. The problem is my co-founder. He's a real stick in the mud. Let me talk to him, and we'll get back to you. And then then I'll put him in the list, and I'll respond, follow up in 2 weeks. So did you talk to your co-founder? He's on board. We love it. But the problem is, and then you're waiting for funding, and so you get all sorts of. But that's part of the fun. Like that was why it was so.
If it's still fun, then it's fine.
Well, it's not now. Yeah, now I've had to stop that side of it just because all I wanted was like a safety net essentially, because the Motion Plus is like noisy, and I just wanted something that was a stable monthly income basically, so that I didn't worry about that.
I have two questions related to that. One is actually from the audience. So many open source developers use it actually as a hobby, and they don't want to connect it with making money. And they might be afraid that it might become a job. With what you are describing, this might be kind of the downside of the job, that you actually have to do the sales pitches and raise the money. So the question is really here, any thoughts on that? But maybe what my underlying question related to that would be, would you do it again? Would you again, like if you went back, I don't know, when was it, 8 months back? With seeing your journey, would you make the same decision?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I'm having a blast. It's crazy to think that it's actually sort of turned out the way it has, to be honest, because it's just great fun, and it's like I think of doing it, I'm like, wow, like I'm just just the way my brain, like I'm not a good employee, so I don't I need this to work. And then in terms of like I suppose I've already covered like the fun. Like I do actually find some of the business side of it fun, but I think that's the other thing, is that I'm trying to keep it at a certain scale, like a one-person scale, really. So I have done like certain contracts. Like I had someone come in and redesign the website, because that was a very isolated job that I knew I could pay them for just that. But in terms of getting like more, if like I think most people's advice here would be like, okay, so what you do, you take this extra money, you get yourself another employee, and then you grow the and every time I hear grow, I'm like, why would I do that? Because at the moment, I'm just having fun doing these things that I'm interested in, and I spend most of my time on that. If I hire someone, and that now, like, you start to bring in all this other stuff like admin, which already like there's an amount of admin. I mean, there's some amount of admin basically. I don't want more. And so if you get another employee, it would be fun to work with people again, because I loved it at Framer, and you think, well, I could build this and that. But really, like, I've just got, in that sense, I'm trying to be disciplined for once, and not like give in to those sorts of thoughts. Like, because there's certain things I want to do. I'm not getting through my roadmap like quickly. It's like taking, it's been 7 months. And I'm like, you know, it's not that, and I feel like I'm moving pretty quick, but there's so much still to do. And then you get new ideas like that I want to do, like a timeline editor or whatever. You think, well, that's a 2-month project. Can I reasonably take 2 months out of this to do that? And it might not be a successful business. Like, then you're sort of thinking in terms of business. Is that going to be a good business idea? Like, probably not. I don't know.
Would you take this path if you kind of saw this opportunity to make it into bigger business?
Yeah, no, exactly. So no, I'm just I'd rather not do something and be comfortable with that, because I don't want to be stressed. Like, I don't want to add all of that to my life. Whereas right now, I feel like I've got a good balance. And And if it's your hobby that you enjoy, then yeah, probably, I don't know, it's tough to say. It depends how much you struggle working inside a company structure. For me, I'm like this with every single thing I do. Like, you know, I like to take photos. I'm frustrated. Like, I'll never make a book and sell it. And then you're like, well, why you do? Just be happy taking a picture. And it's the same with code. Like, if you know, if it's your hobby, then just maybe, yeah, keep it that way. But if it's your hobby and your day job is coding, then you might as well take your side projects and, yeah, try and make some money off it, because it's, you know, you might enjoy it more than your normal job. Depends what you like. Because I did, for a moment, I was essentially with Motion One, like I was working 16 hours a day, like 8 at Framer, and then another, because I was so into it, at 8 on my side project. I'd be getting up early because I was so excited to work, and then at the end of it, I was just burnt out, and yeah, I just don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to go down that road again.
Okay, I get it. So you don't want to be employee and you don't want to be manager either. So
yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
I've
just
got
in
to
the right
be.
sweet spot.
Mhm.
This is interesting question that got voted quite a lot. Would you consider writing a library which would be fully commercial, not open source, or converting Motion into this in order to get rich?
No. And because that was on, well, it wasn't on the site. So as part of the agreement, I had to keep it open source. But that was an easy one to agree to, because I just feel like it's just such a dick move, isn't it? Like, just switching on people like that. So new things, I've got no problem. Like, there's a whole suite of APIs that are either in early access or will never be free. And I don't mind building new things. Like, in certain, it depends. Like, if I think it's core to the library, then it will go in early access maybe for a month, and then after that month, it will be free for everyone. If it's something that I think is quite specific, like the custom cursor, not many people need it. Therefore, it almost has more value to those people, I guess, and that makes a good candidate for an API that will always be behind a paywall. Yeah, so basically, I'm never gonna do that. Yeah, because I also I don't know. Maybe it would make a short term. I think short term, maybe it would make. I don't know. If you just gone held a bunch of people to ransom, like, is that they probably just fork the old version that was free, as they should. So yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. Yeah.
All right. I thought so, but it was very much upvoted, so I had to ask it. Since you were talking about the Vue integration, how about Angular integration?
So the Vue integration was quite special, I guess. Like, I didn't really want to do it. I did want to do it, but it was just also I suppose my concern was like, okay, well, now we've got this whole other thing to maintain. And so in my head, I thought, well, if I do a Vue version, maybe it'll take a year, and I'll do my usual bit by bit, and like I'll just keep building into it. Maybe I'll put it behind Motion Plus or something like that. And this guy Rick, he ported the internals of Motion for React into a Vue version, and the whole thing was feature complete, and it was really good. It had good tests and everything. So I was like, if I sponsor you, so now it's like, will you maintain this as the official integration for Motion? And he was super up for it. It would take, I'd need to find another Rick as well, because it becomes like a business consideration. Like, I think Angular is probably big enough that it makes sense, but something like Solid, I think, might be smaller. And so it's like people who love Solid, they're like, where's the Solid version? I don't know if I can, I've got to think about like how many. I mean, that is one thing that changes mentally, but I suppose it doesn't, because like I've got all this new time, but then at the same time I have to justify that with, is that a good business proposition? And like, probably not. And also, I'm a React guy, so like, I know that really well. I don't know Angular, so am I going to make a really good version of an Angular Motion? Like, probably not. So it would take someone like Rick, who's like a Vue guy, self-starter. By the way, I've just made this. Like, would you, make it official? Like, but maybe I even wouldn't then. But like, that's what it would take at least. Yeah.
All right, and I feel we should wrap up with just a couple of questions and maybe get to networking and the competition and have some drinks. So kind of the more like soft last questions. maybe let's start with this one. Are there any like power users or people in general you like to follow that you want to recommend to maybe to others to follow?
Yeah, I do. Maybe I could give a list if we sending out a newsletter after this.
Yes.
Just because like some of these names I can't remember or spell, and so maybe I'll just compile a list that we can send out. Because yeah, definitely there's some people, and they're not even like power users, but maybe they're just like really good at animations in general. And they happen to use Motion, but like if someone was using Greenstock and they were really good at it, then I'd recommend them. I'm not going to, but I'm not above it. I'll just say my list is actually thinking about it, compiled mostly of Motion users. But yeah, I can recommend people. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And maybe what are your top priorities, both coding wise and business wise, for the next maybe 3 months? What's gonna happen?
Yeah. So I'm building out like a reactive set of vanilla so if you like no signals and stuff, it's like a signal inspired part of the library where you can just compose these motion values and then put them for a style effects, and then it'll update. And so more effects, more types of motion values, and then rebuilding parts of Motion for React on those, because those perform better now. Like this is like the new suite of APIs. So ironically, like back to performance stuff, but that's and then also incorporating more browser APIs in the core library. So like at the moment, like if you make a scroll animation, it will intelligently, but like, well, it's stupidly, but like it will either run it on the main thread, or it will use the browser's new, if it's available, the scroll timeline. So you get like better performance basically. I'd like to do that, but with there's another one called view timeline, which is just for tracking elements within the viewport. And yeah, so there's some stuff like that. Business-wise, I think I just want to keep outputting more examples to make that so when I started Motion Plus, I just did like the broad spread of like every feature that I thought. So there'd be like 10 premium examples. There'd be a custom cursor API, and then there was a couple of AI features. But then I started building into all of these. So like now there's like 100 or so examples. There's animate number, split text. There's a few more premium APIs, and the AI stuff I want to do a bit more with as well. So I want to get to the place where, and you might want Motion Plus for like just the APIs, or just the examples, and you can look at the price and go, oh, that's worth it to me just for that bit. It's almost like a simplicity thing from my end, but like, because if you can do that, then you'll make it a slam dunk for people who are like, oh, well, the examples are worth it to me and the APIs are worth it to me. So that makes it a really good deal. So that's sort of how I'm thinking about it. But to do that, I'm concentrating on bits at a time. So the examples got a lot of love for like 1 month or 2 months, where it was just basically only examples. I'd like to make some new premium APIs now. So that's the next thing, yeah.
All right. So we are running out of questions. Nobody's asking anything. I think people want to eat and drink.
Me too.
So I would wrap it up. Reach out during networking, and thank you for being here. Thank you for the questions, and thank you, Matt, for coming all the way from Amsterdam.
Oh, thanks for having me, and thanks for for hanging in there. Yeah, no, it's appreciated. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.